Heroes. Heroes embody the best of ourselves. They are what most of us aspire to be. We go to the cinema or the theater to see our heroes, to watch as they fail, struggle, and persevere, to eventually overcome their darkest fears and their own shortcomings, and ultimately defeat the villain. The villain, however, isn't unimportant in this equation. Without a villain, our hero would have nothing to face. Villains exist to highlight the traits of the hero the author deems most important. It is the contrast between the villain and the hero that leaves us at the edge of our seats reaching for the popcorn and ultimately allows us to exhale once the hero has achieved victory. The greatest villains in cinematic history weren't just pure evil though. They were liked, often more fondly remembered than even the hero. Who here would argue that the greatest part of The Dark Knight wasn't Joker? You see, the greatest villains are the ones that leave the audience with a sense of cognitive dissonance. The audience knows they are meant to hate the character, but in secret they can identify with the villain. They do not hate the villain, no. They understand the villain and they follow their motives, and if it is truly well written, they leave the theater feeling happy but also a little sad upon the villain's defeat. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Akulon. Thank you so much for joining us. If this is your first time, remember to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and write some stupid shit in the comment section down below. It all helps. If you are already a patron or a Twitch sub, thank you so much for your support. Your names should be on the screen right now. More on how to support the channel at the end of the video. Let's go. Whoa, before we continue with the video, I almost forgot to tell you, I stream live every Tuesday to Saturday over on Twitch, so hit the link in the description down below. Come join these conversations live because it is always better when it's live. Now, let's go into the video. Now, when it comes to World of Warcraft, villains are often treated very differently. You see, Blizzard as a rule, or World of Warcraft in this instance, doesn't rely on dialogue as much as most other RPGs would. Instead, Blizzard likes to tell the stories of their villains either through secondhand dialogue, in other words, what other characters has to say about the villain, through the actions of the villain rather than the words. And villains in WoW usually build over the course of many years. If you think about things like Arthas, you think about things like the Burning Legion, the Naga, the Titan Keepers and the Titans even, the Old Gods. These are all villains that have been with us for a very long time, in some cases over 2 decades ago. But given that amount of time, these villains were able to adjust, to build, to find a place within the hearts of the players. And it is as a result of this that as soon as these villains are introduced into expansions, the players feels a sense of exhilaration. We're finally going to see the Burning Legion. We're finally going to see Arthas. We're finally going to see Azshara. These are exciting moments for most players in World of Warcraft because the villains in World of Warcraft, in history at least, were relatively well constructed. We understood why we were meant to dislike these characters, but there was also something about them that we inherently liked. These villains were truly people, characters, and we had the ability to resonate with them, to find common cause. There is a tweet by Mr. Hideo Kojima. Now, for those of you that don't know Mr. Hideo Kojima, I consider him to be one of the gods of storytelling in the gaming industry. This is the man behind most of the Metal Gear Solid trilogies or stories. This is the man behind Death Stranding, and I've played Death Stranding. It is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I'm going to share my screen with all of you, just so that you can see this tweet. The same is true for American comics and video games, but in order to create a hero, you need villains. Good and evil, light and dark can be vague, but heroes and villains need to appear as a pair. The popularity of heroes alone will not suffice. Very true words, very, very true, and it's basically what I said earlier. The balance can be maintained only with the popularity of the villains. In other words, we must create characters who are attractive even if they are evil. The distortion. And I could not agree with him more. The whole point, the whole plot of a great villain is exactly that. The audience experiences active cognitive dissonance as they're sitting there going, man, I hate this character, but I also kind of love this character. Going back and forth between these emotions, if you will. So what exactly happened in Shadowlands? Remember, the point of this video is to explain why Shadowlands failed, and I'm here to tell you that it has very little to do with much of anything in the story. The heroes were there. It's us. We're always there. The NPCs that we played with, the Janus, the Thralls, the Bolvars, these are well-established NPCs. They've been at the forefront of previous expansions, and those expansions did work. So what exactly went wrong in Shadowlands? Well, the Jailer. As the ultimate big bad, he had zero build-up. He came completely out of left field. One day we woke up and suddenly we were told that this bad guy, or baddest of the bad guys, were effectively behind everything. Things that we had come to cherish and love. Now, this was risky at best. If the Jailer was better written, it could have worked, but it always ran an incredibly high risk. You're taking lore that players find personally endearing and loving to themselves, and you're trying to change that lore into something else. And suddenly, when the Jailer is not well liked, all of that other lore now loses a lot of significance within the hearts and minds of the player base. The Jailer also felt incredibly rushed and unfinished. We're told that the Jailer is an evil guy, and yet at no point is this really shown. We're told that he is behind all of these things that has happened in the past, and yet most players struggle to believe it. Even now, we have arguments in our Discord where people go, I don't necessarily agree. I don't think he did any of those things. I think maybe he's just taking credit for it, but that makes no sense, because again, you've risked it all by trying to pin basically every bad deed in the last 20 years of World of Warcraft, Warcraft 3 included, on a single villain. A villain that completely fell flat at the feet of the audience, so to speak. Most of the dialogue in Shadowlands as well, I fear, was worse than any previous expansion, and what I mean by that is, at least in previous expansions, we had a lot of dialogue between characters. So they never have dialogue with us as the characters, and this is something that we're quite used to. But the characters in World of Warcraft would oftentimes have dialogue with each other. A lot of the previous expansions, if you, for example, look at BFA even, look at some of the cinematics, Anduin and Saurfang in the prison, there's a dialogue that's happening there. Sylvanas and Saurfang in front of the gates of Orgrimmar, there is a dialogue that is taking place there between the characters. Azshara had a crap ton of dialogue, even dialogue with Sylvanas, dialogue with some of the others. Dialogue was used to build up and create these villains. Within Shadowlands, though, the dialogue felt a lot more one-liney. It was like every single line was meant to be this incredibly impactful line that moves the audience, and the problem is that that's not how it works. Sometimes it is the build-up that is far more important than the punchline. You've ever heard a joke that is so funny that you're basically laughing yourself out before the punchline is ever even uttered? That's the whole point. Good dialogue is the build-up to the dialogue, and then that sense of exhalation as soon as it all comes to, fruition, as soon as it finishes. There was none of that within the Shadowlands. I took the liberty of making a list of things that we still do not know about the Shadowlands or the Jailer. What did the Jailer do to be banished? What was he afraid of? What was his motives? How did the other Eternal Ones banish him? What was the deal with Helia and Sylvanas? Why did he want Teldrassil to burn? How did Argus end up in the Shadowlands? Why did Nathrius banish him just to later help him? Why did he divide the cosmos and then claim that, yes, the divided cosmos is why the cosmos will fail, when he was the one that divided it in the first place? There's way too many things to list. We'd be here for about 20 minutes just running down the list of everything we do not know about the jailer so far. But these are sort of what I consider to be the most important questions that I have in the Shadowlands that is yet at the end of the Shadowlands still not answered. None of this is shown. None of this is discussed. It's basically the most undercooked villain in the history of World of Warcraft. The truth is, the jailer never stood a chance. As a character, he was uninteresting and completely boring. None of his actions ever convinced the audience there was anything to hate. None of his dialogue gave the audience any reason to like him or to identify with him. He was bland, and this can be down to only two things. Either World of Warcraft had zero writing direction, or it was rushed and cut content. Now, Blizzard claims, by the way, that there is no rushed content in this expansion whatsoever, that nothing was cut, nothing was rushed. This is exactly the story they wanted to tell. If that is true, it actually spells a lot more problems for the future of World of Warcraft, because it means we have a lead narrative director that has no idea how to actually direct a story, because Shadowlands suffered from direction. It didn't know what it wanted to be. There were billions of plot lines and storylines introduced in this expansion that didn't go anywhere. These storylines sort of started up and then ended sort of in the middle of the storyline with nothing really going forward. It felt like they were picking certain things up and then just putting them down again to pick up something else. The Helia Sylvana storyline picks up, the Odin storyline picks up, and it sort of just comes to a very abrupt end. Muazala and Bonsandi was meant to be something important, and yet that also seems to end right at the end of the dungeon. You have the Drustvar. What are they supposed to do there? Why are they introduced into the story? Who knows? The house, the different houses in Maldraxxus. They're supposed to be important. They're supposed to mean something. I mean, these are incredibly strong houses trying to attack, and ultimately their stories sort of end with no real bang or buck. You know, it's just kind of like, there you go. That's the story that we have time for today. In a lot of ways, this is the biggest problem I have with Shadowlands, is there doesn't seem to be any one story that anyone could settle upon to actually tell. Now, I would argue that maybe the opposite is more true. Maybe it's not so much writing direction, but rather cut content. Look, I don't work for Blizzard. I don't know, but I do have contacts within Blizzard that told me that what Ian said is obviously bullshit, that they cut a crap ton of content from the Shadowlands. I can only tell you what I think, and that is that this seems to be an expansion where a lot that was supposed to be there ended up not being there. Ian even spoke about Galakrond at BlizzCon, saying how Galakrond was the first to use necromancy on Azeroth, and somehow Galakrond never featured even once in the expansion. So what was that about? I don't know, but I can tell you it makes me worry. Is there hope for the future? To ensure we never repeat the mistakes of Shadowlands, Blizzard would do best to stick to something simple. Fewer plotlines with fewer storylines, and ensure that each of the storylines ultimately receive their just effort. Take the player on smaller journeys, but allow the player to be part of those journeys. Choose villains that are established and give those villains time to breathe. Give the audience time to connect with the villains. This is the only way WoW can ever truly become a great story again. Ladies and gentlemen, my name of course is Akalon. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and write some stupid shit in the comment section down below. If you're not already a patron or a Twitch sub or a YouTube channel member of this channel, please hit the links in the description down below to whichever one you find relevant. I do stream every single week on Twitch, so come join us live for more of these discussions. There is behind the scenes content for patrons and more content coming for patrons and YouTube channel members, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. As always, please be kind to each other, be good to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace out, fam.